Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. It's Jason Van Orden here, joined by Erica Holthausen, and you have arrived at the How to Design a Signature Method that can help amplify your authority, your impact, your reach, and hopefully your income that you make from your expertise as well. And we're here today to share as many insights as we can to help you to leverage this very powerful strategy. So we're going to dive into that more specifically here. Just very quickly, we want to introduce ourselves. I'll do that quickly and turn the time over to Erica to do that as well. So I'm Jason Van Orden. I'm a business growth strategist who works with coaches and consultants who are looking to unlock that next level of income and impact, but they're not quite sure what they need to adjust in their business model and their offers, their marketing or messaging in order to open up that greater impact and income without, nobody wants to burn themselves out as they're growing their business or sacrifice the great results that they're delivering. And of course, signature methods are a big part of how I help people do that. Erica, so nice to be here with you today. You want to give everybody a quick introduction to who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. So my name is Erica Holthausen. I am the founder of Catchline Communications. I am an editor and writer for a number of years. And now what I do is I help consultants learn how to build their authority and stand out from their peers by writing and publishing articles in what I call high visibility publications. So that can be business magazines like Harvard Business Review or Inc., or association publications like TD Magazine.
Awesome. Love it. So let's give everybody just a little definition of what we mean by signature method. And I'd be really curious to hear how you define it as somebody who's been through that process with me and also refined your own over the last couple of years and applied it in so many ways to your business. Yeah, I've seen you talk about it and I really like how you put it. So I'm going to actually throw it to you to give a quick definition of what is a signature method. And then we can talk about like why it's so important and impactful for an expert-based business for coaches, consultants, and experts.
Yeah, and I'll start by saying I was a major curmudgeon about this concept and didn't want to do it for a long time because I was like, oh, it can't be a cookie cutter approach. And that is so not what it is. So a signature method really is a framework, and it gives you the basic framework. For me, it's the framework for my entire business. And within that framework, you can customize things so that you can meet your clients exactly where they are, and so that you can help them get to whatever your end outcome goal is for your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of like what that looks like when the rubber meets the road, like you've got a great one-page summary of your signature method. Sometimes it's a diagram. I mean, there are lots of different ways you can present it to the marketplace. But for many of us who have some of those experts and influencers that we look up to and enjoy their work, if you think about it, a lot of them have signature methods as well, whether it's Brene Brown or Seth Godin or Tim Ferriss, whoever, like they've got these very specific frameworks that they've come up with at the core of their body of work, at the core of the books that they write, the content that they put out there. Which then in turn has made it so much easier for their ideas to reach more people and for people to grasp and apply that in their own work as well.
And that's one of the benefits of it, right? Is that like my signature method it's an organizing principle for my body of work. So it's not the same thing. Those are two different things, but the body of work can then reinforce the signature method, but the signature method becomes an organizing principle for my entire body of work. If it doesn't fit within that framework, I don't do it. I don't write about it. I don't talk about it. I don't do it. So it really helps serve also as a filter. And I think, as you were talking about some of these other folks who have these great signature methods, it gives clients more confidence. Oh, there's actually a process. There's actually something. I'm not just putting my hands in somebody who's going to make stuff up as they go along. Like there's an actual tested process here that I can be brought through. And it's not a one size fits none type of situation.
Right. Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and, actually, it's been a little while since I've tried the good old share my screen thing. We're all used to doing that with Zoom, but I haven't done it with StreamYard. But I'm going to give this a try here really quick and see.
We're experimenting live, folks.
Yeah, we're experimenting live, because what I would love to do is just, okay, here it is to share with everybody I think everybody should be seeing that. Yeah, it looks like it's come up. So like, this is one representation of your Silva method. You know, and often when I show this as an example, you know, it's always interesting for me to ask people, like, what do you notice about this? And, you know, a few things stick out, like, okay, it's got a name, it's branded. You know, in your case, there's also an acronym or a word for making it easy to remember. And that outlines specific milestones or steps that clients go through on the way to the ultimate outcomes that you are guiding them to. And, you know, of course, when you show somebody something visually like this, whether you're in a networking call, sharing it by email, on a sales call with a potential client, or inside of content, it, you know, gives something for people to really latch on to. And, you know, instead of just like hearing you talk about or write about, they can actually visualize and see as well what your process looks like. And so anyway, I just want to show this as a quick example to people. Anything else you want to point out about this? I know this is like a few versions in, which I want to point out to people as well. This can evolve over time, and absolutely it should. It doesn't need to be all nice and pristine like this the first time out of the gate. But yeah, is there anything else you would point out about this?
Yeah, like really quickly, it's also Silva. I'm doing on-demand courses for each one of those 5 elements. So again, it's a framework not only for the work that I do, but it's also a framework for my business. And those, like the select your publication, illuminate your body of work, on and on, all of those are also categories in my blog. So I can now divide my blog and say, okay, I just want to see the things that are about, like, validate your ideas. And I can send those articles to people so that they can see that and get a little bit more information. So yeah, it has been an incredibly helpful tool also for my own mind, because I have like 10 squirrels battling in my brain at all times. So it keeps me focused as well as everything I do.
So let's we'll get into like some of the so you've touched on some of the benefits. You know, the strategic tool, it can be a sales tool, it can organize your content, be a framework for your body of work. For those who right now, let's talk a little bit about like how to even start developing this. And, you know, I know a lot of times people feel like, oh, well, maybe there's not something so unique about my process or my approach. I mean, you know, I'm just kind of teaching similar things that other people teach as well. So what's so special about what I have to offer? So could I even create a signature method? And I'm really curious, for somebody who's been through this process yourself, like what would you say to somebody who, is wondering that? It's like, do I have a signature process up here to even get onto the page?
Yeah, and I'll say, when I was putting together my signature method, and so first, my first advice, what I did, I hired Jason, so to help walk me through the process of figuring this out. But in putting it together, it really helped me sort of start with the end in mind, with, okay, this is the result I'm trying to get folks to, and then back it up. So it's like, okay, here's the first step, here's the next step, here's it, and put those all together. And then I think it's also allow it to be a messy process. I think I've said this to you before, Jason. When I was doing this, my entire office looked like that room out of A Beautiful Mind. I had Post-it notes everywhere, because there are a lot of different ways you can organize this and figure out, like, okay, what is the overarching goal? And then what are all of the, what are the things that are the themes that are kind of holding it up? And then what are the workshops or things that are under it that get you there? So it really helped me think about exactly what I'm doing and systematize it more, make it really super, super clear for myself, and recognizing that certain clients, some clients might come in at different stages of this process, especially for my private one-to-one clients. But here's still the entire process. And a lot of people think they're coming in at one place in the process, and the reality is they're not. So it lets me also see those red flags where it's like, oh, okay, like let's have this conversation first, because I actually think we need to be really clear there to make this work.
Right. Yeah. So you're talking about this one thing I'm hearing you say is like it's this externalization of your ideas. Like, we can be in the room with our clients and intuitive, and they're talking to us and we're asking questions, and then we pull out the right idea at the right moment to give to them, and that's great. But yeah, can this exist outside of us being present in the room? And it sounds like your process was, for you, sticky notes all over the whiteboard or the walls or whatever. For others, I know sometimes it's like a mind map. Sometimes people like to do index cards, but at first it sounds like it's like, hey, let's just get out of my brain all of the different elements, not worrying about what order it's in, if this is too many things, and like just very divergent. Hey, let's get it out there of like the key themes, elements, milestones that make up your process of taking this ideal client to this highly desired outcome that they have. And so I guess that's one key thing I want to underscore for people is that, that's what this process looks like, is like, hey, let's start pulling it out of your brain and putting it out there for you to start looking at. And then you can start, combining and eliminating as needed to narrow down to something like what we're doing here.
And it can be wicked helpful to think through your work with one of your clients. Say, okay, here's this client. This is where we started. This is what we had to do. This is where we needed to back up a little bit. This is where, and that can start to really start putting some like meat around it, so that you can start to see it, because my signature method was very much hidden from me before I had it.
Interesting, right? Yeah.
It was not something that I could say to you or describe really well. It was just like I knew what I needed to do, and so I just did it. But like really being able to break it down, now it's not just I know what to do, you know what we're going to do.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Now we have several people on LinkedIn who are tuning in, and thanks for joining us live here. And of course, if there are any thoughts or questions that you have at any point, we are monitoring the comments and things coming in. So by all means, please feel free to ask away, and we will see and respond to those things as we can, because we want to make this content as useful as possible for you here as well. So just to kind of wrap up this idea of how to start designing, I guess we're saying, okay, yeah, you got to start getting it out of your brain. So what I often tell people is, first of all, clarify, like, who are you making this for? As with anything, an offer, writing a piece of content, who's the audience? Like, who are we actually trying to reach with, help with this resource? And clarifying, like, what are the core outcomes that they want, that they desire, that we're going to guide them to using our process. And so those two things kind of help narrow in or focus. Otherwise, I've found that sometimes it can be very nebulous and hard to try to create a signature method. And often because, somebody's trying to think about too many different outcomes and too many different types of people that they're serving at a time. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that in as an important first step to like focus who and what you're creating this signature method for, before you start then externalizing and dumping all the stuff out there. Anything you would add in terms of your experience with that, as far as that process that you
I think like knowing those two things is the critical first step, but then you can start from the top down, like here's the outcome and I want to back up, but you can also start from the bottom up and be like, here are the things that I do. And my process did both. I sometimes started at the top. Sometimes I started at the bottom, and that was what allowed me to make sure I found things. And then there were certain things that I was like, this doesn't go anywhere. So that was also incredibly clarifying, because it was like, okay, it doesn't go anywhere. Should it? Or is it that it doesn't go anywhere and it shouldn't? Like, this is actually something you should not be doing. And so that was also really helpful, because it made me think very strategically about what I will do, what I won't do, like what's in my wheelhouse. I hate that phrase, but I'm going to use it anyway. And what's not in my wheelhouse.
Right. Yeah, just commenting here. It looks like for a couple of people, this it keeps pausing and you have to reload. I'm not sure if that's on the LinkedIn side, the StreamYard side. By all means, there should be a nice clean recording at the end, and we can make sure that you get your hands on that if you have any trouble. Looks like for some people it's working fine, but anyway, hopefully we'll still make sure you get all the information in the end. So in terms of like that kind of finalizing of the draft, right? So it's like at some point you've put all this stuff out there. You're like, okay, what are the key steps? What are the key categories, the key elements or pillars of my process? And that's one thing I want to point out is that it may be kind of a sequential thing like yours is in order. And for others, sometimes it's more like, hey, here are the 4 or 5 key areas or categories or pillars of leadership or, whatever your topic is. And, your clients can kind of guide themselves through those in the order that makes the most sense for them. So it doesn't have to be a sequential thing. But then, yeah, in terms of like, you've got all this stuff like captured in a mind map or in sticky notes or 3x5 cards or whatever it is. What did you find most helpful in terms of like really starting to narrow it down to, well, what are these key elements? In the end, you've got the 5 and and you found a nice acronym for it. But I'm sure there was a lot more than that sitting on the whiteboard before it ended up looking like this.
Yeah, and it started out with, it was some ridiculous number. It was double digits, like the number of, it's like, it's this many steps. It was completely bananas. So
Right.
then it was like, okay, combine some of those and pull it in a little bit, which I was able to do because there are so many different ways. Once you have all of the information, it's one of those obnoxious jigsaw puzzles where all the pieces fit with each other. So there's a lot of different ways to slice and dice it. So then I had what I called the peaceful publishing method. And so it was 8 steps that I like spelling things out. So it was peaceful. And I never really liked the name, but I tested it and I brought a small group through that entire process from beginning to end and got some great feedback from people. One of which was, I want to do the writing earlier. I feel like we're waiting too long in this process to actually start writing. And I was like, well, that's a damn good point.
Right.
And started to, and so reconfigured and ended up coming up with Silva.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing there is like you want throughout the process from beginning to end, you want them to be able to see momentum happening
Mm-hmm.
in a way that feels meaningful to them, that ties to like the ultimate outcomes that they're going for. And that as they're going through each of these steps, they can feel like they are measuring progress as they go. And if it's too much of just like prep, think before you actually do, it's hard for people to be as motivated as they go through your process, as opposed to like, hey, let's do this first step that brings you like this high level of like clarity about what you want, where you're going, or
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing, and then now let's go to this next step where you actually like create or decide a key thing, and then okay, now let's create a thing you can put out there in the wild and have people, right? So we want these steps to feel meaningful to people as they are going through it, whether they're just looking at it the first time going like, oh yeah, this totally looks like what I need to do, or as they are going step by step, they can feel like, yeah, I'm totally on track here. I can see that this is working for me as we go.
And just because it makes sense to us,
Right.
to nitty gritty the steps a little bit more, which is what my first version was like. It was a little more nitty gritty. Doesn't mean that it actually makes sense in practice. So that's always been the thing, is hold, especially the first version, hold it gently, and then now, like, I test this essentially every single time I run my program, and I'm no longer changing the name of it or the big framework. I'm changing some of the stuff within to make it work better, to make it more powerful, to make it make more sense. Like, one of the benefits of testing is you do something, and when everybody is confused about the same thing, that's not them, that's you. So then you go back to the drawing board and it's like, okay, let me fix this.
Right.
Yeah.
So what have been some of the most surprising benefits of having this signature method. We talked about how it can be a strategic filter. It can be, help focus your content. You've got assets or master classes on each of these different elements. I think you mentioned that, it's the pieces of your program as well. What else I'm curious what else has like popped out and using this in your business. You're like, oh, I didn't even think about that, but it's totally been useful for that
Yeah.
piece as well.
And actually, Andrea Enright brought this up
Mhm.
on one of the comments earlier today
Oh
on
yeah.
one of our posts. And the biggest surprise for me was I was afraid that scaling meant less attention to my clients,
Mm,
meant that I would not be as engaged, that I would not be as invested because I would have too many to handle. Not at all true. You can scale in that way if you want to. If you want to have like 10,000 people and everybody's a number, like rock on with your bad self. But I've never wanted that. And that was why I was very hesitant to do something like this, like coming up with a signature method.
yeah.
And what I've found is now we can do things as a group that are kind of like the basics that everybody's going to have to go through. Everybody has to do these certain things. And then I can get information that is unique to each person and then be able to give customized feedback. So it actually means that the time that I spend with my clients is more focused, more meaningful, and more specific. So it's
Mm.
I did not expect that because I was very afraid. I mean, you heard me, I whined about this a lot when we were working
Right.
together. um, and that has been such a delightful piece. And it also like just having the right groups come together where they're also helping and supporting each other has
Mm.
been an incredible part of the process. But being able to be an even better and more valuable support, that has been a side benefit, not even a side benefit. That has probably been the biggest benefit of all that has just like really made me happy that I was not expecting.
Awesome. And then from the other side of the equation, are there things that your clients have said or prospective clients have said to you relative to this signature method that you found particularly interesting or surprising or beneficial um, from their perspective?
Yeah. So certain things have been confirmed. Um, Nobody likes the first step, select your publication, because you really have to be something like we talked about earlier. It can't just be like, oh, I want to write for Harvard Business Review,
Right.
because maybe you do, maybe you don't. So that first step really gets into the nitty gritty details of who is your client, just like you were talking about earlier, when you start putting this together, like
Yeah.
who is your client, what are you helping them do, like where, like let's really get into it. Because one of the things I'm always saying is you aren't writing to get published, you're getting published to achieve a specific business goal. But
Yeah.
if you don't know what that business goal is, then it doesn't matter which publication you choose. If you know
Right.
what that business goal is and who your people are. So that's always been an interesting, it's allowed me to have that conversation really easily, because in part because people see it and they're like, oh, well, I already know which publication. And then I like immediately I can say, well, actually, like, let's talk about that a little bit more.
Mhm.
So that's been another thing, is it has helped me. How other people respond to it allows me to then figure out, oh, this is a place where we need to have more of a conversation. This is a
Mm.
place that we can kind of explore a little bit more and see what makes sense and what doesn't make sense.
Yeah, this is a really good point that just as with anything, when we systematize it, it becomes easier to adjust and tweak and improve it.
Hmm.
Because now you can look at like, yeah, where are the friction points, where are the sticking points, what are the things that maybe people don't respond to or get as easily, or whatever it may be. So in the same way that you might be tracking metrics in your sales funnel or whatever, and that allows you then to improve the pieces that aren't working, it's the same thing with, I would say, with your signature process as well. When it exists as this thing that we might be exceptionally good at helping people do, but it's all just up here in this intuitive, mishmash of value, but it's not out here, we can look at it and go like, you know what? This piece right here, it could really use some additional help. I can make better tools for that. Maybe I should rename that so that it has a stronger meaning for people, or whatever those slight tweaks will be that then lead to the better receipt of our ideas, but then also the outcomes that people get from applying those ideas as well.
Yeah. And I think it also allows people to see themselves at the end goal, because especially like the work that I do, the industry that I'm in, it's like there's a lot of information out there that's garbage. And there's a lot we have ideas of what is required to be able to do this. And having the methodology kind of laid out makes it go, oh, okay, this is doable. This is a thing. Like, this is a thing that I can actually do, as opposed to I have absolutely no idea where to begin. Now it's like, okay, there's a thing. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And that leads to a certain level of clarity and confidence on our part as well. Just looking at the comments here, and actually thinking back to a comment, I see Andrea's here tuning in, and she brought something up on one of my posts earlier this week that I do hear from people, and it's totally normal to think and wonder. It's like, okay, but I really like being in the room with one-on-one with my clients, and just kind of like intuitively pulling out the right question to ask in that moment, or saying, hey, you know what, I really think you should do these 3 things next. All the things that we do as coaches and consultants that make us good at what we do. And it feels good to like be in that moment and have them, appreciate that and react to that and get excited and start getting results from that. And I think it can pull us into this idea of, well, I want to feel like totally indispensable to my clients. And if I create this external thing that's not, tied 100% to me being present, that sometimes it feels like, oh, well, do I still have value inside of the business, inside of my body of work, inside of what I'm creating here? Which, totally understandable, I think, to feel that way. Now, I want to point out, it's like, hey, not everybody has to approach things this way. We talk about scale your business. And for some people, like, hey, they don't need the multi-7-figure business. They're just happy to like make a really good living doing meaningful work that's making an impact in the world. And so whatever that looks like for you, to whatever degree this can help you do that, wonderful. And, for some people, they realize, wow, I am becoming the bottleneck in my business, and I'm actually getting kind of a little bit burned out. Clients always want to be on the phone with me, or they don't feel like they're getting their money's worth. Clients always want to be able to interface with my brain, or else they're not happy. And so, we are making this trade-off in terms of feeling like that energy of being that indispensable person in the moment, versus allowing our ideas to transcend our limitations as a human with a limited amount of time and energy to put into things. And so I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that as well, Alexander.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Erica. And I'm going to bring this up here, and I'm going to bring, while you're talking about that, I'm going to bring up another diagram that shows kind of a little bit what I'm talking about here. But yeah, I'm curious your thoughts about what I just brought up there.
Yeah. So first, I am one of those people who I have no interest in a 7-figure business. Like, rock on with your bad self if that's what you want. I don't. I love what I do. I love the people that I work with. That's who I want to work with. And that's what I want to be doing. So that's one piece. The second piece that kind of came up for me while you were talking, Jason, is I also don't want to be indispensable to you forever. I want you to learn what you need to learn, and I want you to get the fuck out. So because if I have not given you the tools to do this on your own, I have failed and have not done my job. If you need me forever, I have failed. Now, that's not to say that it can't be an extended engagement that goes on for a while, where I am serving as an editor, because I do a lot of private editing as well. But if you are that reliant on me, I failed. You do need to graduate, and part of that is because I get bored. I like like new people coming in who know things that I know absolutely nothing about, that just can fascinate me because they're experts in, data science, which is not an area of my expertise.
Right.
So it's also, I like having some of that turnover, because that keeps me interested and energized. Different people think about things in wildly different ways, and that helps me see my own stuff from a
Yeah.
new perspective. So, I think there's a bunch of different ways to do that. And then the reality for me has been that by allowing it to be something like that, where I'm not indispensable forever, it means that the time that I am spending with my clients is really high value. It goes back to
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
idea. Like, we know what the goal is. We're very clear about that. Like, you don't, as a client, feel like I'm going to upsell you until the end of time.
Right.
Like, once you've gotten here, fly away, little birdie, like, rock on. I'm always here if you need, like, if you need some, oh my gosh, I'm just not sure what to do in this situation. But it shouldn't stay, my signature program, the first 12 weeks, we meet every single week.
Yeah.
It shouldn't stay at that level of intensity
Mm.
forever. So,
Right. Yeah, and so yeah, I brought it, and thank you for that. And I brought up this diagram here to illustrate how the signature method it makes it so that you are not personally required to be in the room, your time, your energy to get results. Whereas, that's often, and naturally, as coaches and clients, our business model is that for a while when we get started. And for some,
mhm,
they'll be happy to do it that way, and that's great. Like, show up and teach the workshop, show up and speak to the room of people, do the one-on-one sessions or the group sessions with clients. But as we see down here, when your signature method becomes the star of the show, meaning that as people you've attracted them into your orbit and started to show them what's possible for them and this way that you have constructed for them to get to what they want, they start not just trusting in you, but it's like, oh, this process that you've created. And then they are enrolling in going through that process, and therefore allowing you to create the systems, bring in the team, train the trainer, license it to people, certify people, whatever, so that there's a greater or more significant support system that can take them through, following a very consistent system
mhm.
to get them to those results, but without it requiring you to be this central element. So I love what you said about, yeah, we don't want our clients to be totally dependent on us in the end. And there's this very counterintuitive thing where I have a program now that I've had people in. In fact, there's a program you were in, and at the time you were in it was like a 6-month program, and we went through specific stuff and delivered value, and it was like, great, awesome, that was fun. And I've adjusted that program now based on a signature method where we're continually able to assess the next piece of someone's business that they can either tweak or leverage as an opportunity to unlock a new level of impact or income or fulfillment or whatever
Mhm.
important to them. And I have people who now have been in this program for over a year, because we just keep using the signature method as a way to zoom in and out on different elements and find that next thing that I can help them with. And then at some point, of course, I want them to go like, yeah, you know what? I've got what I need. I think it's time for me to move on and find somebody else's support. But yeah, there's also this other counterintuitive piece, is that I have
Yeah.
found that having a signature method ends up uncovering additional ways that you can provide value to your client, therefore leading to greater impact, greater results, and client retention, which is, when done well, a win-win-win for everybody as well.
Yeah, because certain clients are going to want to go deeper.
Yeah,
And so that allows you to say, okay, great. Like, let's reassess where you are, like where we started, where you are now, what the next step is that we
yeah,
want to get to. And if I can help with that, because if I can help with that, like, yes, we already have the relationship, like, I am all in.
right.
Um, but creating, in this in this world, there are unfortunately a lot of people who are out there who are providing services that are designed to keep you on the hook until you're dead.
Yeah,
And yeah, like, that's not, I don't think that's at all fun, because, like, not everybody likes me, and that's okay because I don't
That's
like
fine.
everybody. So like
Right.
being able to be really clear about, okay, where does this make sense? And is this a conscious decision for us to continue working together because we're clear about the goals and we're clear about the role that I can play in helping you achieve those goals?
Yeah. I wanted to talk about this idea of body of work. And in your Silva method, we saw that's a piece of what you do is help them to understand, uncover, illuminate their body of work. So I wanted to hear from you, like kind of how you would define body of work and the importance of it for those of us who have businesses that are based on our ideas, our expertise, and then tie that into signature method and how that complements, I guess, this idea of developing a body of work.
Yeah. So if your signature method is the organizing principle of your body of work is all of the stuff that you create that reinforces that signature method. So body of work includes pretty much everything you create. This is part of my body of work. It's part of your body of work. So it fits someplace within our specific, like the goals that of what we are trying to achieve, the reputations we are trying to build. It fits within those. It fits within our signature methods because we're getting to talk about, the cool stuff that we do. So it's everything from this type of appearance, podcast guesting, everything you post on all of the social media, any blog posts that you write, articles that you write, your email newsletter, all of the stuff, your programs, all of the stuff you create, your talks that you give, all of that is a part of your body of work. And the key with it, and the reason the organizing principle of having a signature method is so helpful, is there are certain things that just because you can talk about them or write about them does not mean that you should. If it's outside of the scope of, I want to build a reputation for this, and that is embodied by my signature method. If there's something outside of that, well, I can talk about a lot of things, in part because I'm opinionated about everything, um, but also because I have a lot of different things in my background that I can bring to bear on a conversation. But just because I can doesn't mean I should, because as soon as we start talking about things that are not within that core framework, we
Mhm.
start to confuse people as to, oh, well, I always thought Jason did this, but now he's talking about this other thing. And it can be very easy to kind of accidentally start getting known for something that you're like, actually, that's not what I want to be known for.
Mhm.
So that's a part of it. So your signature method is that organizing principle. The body of work gives it flesh, gives it, meat.
Yeah, there's a good example I can think of for myself. I've for like 20 years or something now, I've made online courses and programs, and so that's something I have a lot of experience in. And several years ago, started. It was something I hung my brand on. It's like lots of experienced coaches and consultants who wanted to scale were like, "Oh, Jason can help me turn my one-to-one business model to a one-to-many business model," which is absolutely still part of what I do. But when that started, at some point that felt like it was becoming too much the core of what I was being known for. And so I started developing this idea in my body of work and this signature method called scalable genius,
Yeah.
which is more broadly the idea of, how do you go from, being that talented expert coach consultant who's doing great work one-on-one with clients, but you're like, what, I would really like things to go to another level in terms of my impact, what I earn, the types of opportunities that I gain, but what are the specific levers I need to flip to make that jump to the next level? And one of them is to look at your offers and are they scalable, right? So that, that was one of the things under this umbrella or hanging on this tree, whatever metaphor
Yeah.
you want to use. And I was able to start, hanging other things on this idea of scalable genius, because ultimately that's what I wanted to be known for, is how do I help amazing, smart, intelligent people with important ideas to reach and help more of the people that they are uniquely gifted and positioned to serve in the world, and not just be known as like, oh, the guy that'll help you make a group program,
Yeah.
which
So
is great, but I wanted to be that broader idea
yeah, I love that. And so the thing that you were known for became one of the pillars
of the,
within what you are being known for
yeah.
now. And that's the other that's the other beautiful thing is it can body of work. And this is where because there is a lot of crossover between like your signature method and your body of work because they reinforce one another. But this is also where like if something doesn't fall within your signature method or your body of work, you can, it lets you really take a look at it. And it's like, okay, do I need to change my signature method and body of work? Or is that something that's not mine to do? That's
Right.
somebody else's to do.
Yeah.
And this can be with big things that are like the 10,000 ideas that we all have before breakfast time.
Yeah.
And it can also be those things where it's like an opportunity comes your way and somebody wants you to speak at this particular conference or something along those lines. And it's sort of kind of related, but not really. Well, when you're really clear about what is in and what is out, it allows you to say, no, that's actually not for me. And then this is something that actually Michael Roderick said once, something like, if it's not an opportunity, but a distraction, you can turn it into a gift because then you can say, you know what, this isn't right for me, but it would be perfect for Jason.
Yeah.
And that's another way that you can really use it to just keep yourself focused, especially for those of us with ADHD. We need all the tools we can get.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. We just have a few moments left here. So I just want to, what else would you like people to make sure that they understand or are thinking about when it comes to signature method that maybe we haven't had a chance to touch on yet here today?
Yeah. I think we touched on a lot of it. I think the biggest thing to just keep in mind is this is not at all confining. It's the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Which sounds so counterintuitive, but there's something beautiful about structure that once you have a structure, the amount of creativity you can unleash within that structure is mind-blowing. And quite a bit more than the amount of creativity you can unleash when it's not structured, because then it's sort of like it's going all over the place as instead of, now I'm going to do visuals. Like you can either bump around right in here, this little structure, or you're like all over the place.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the things that was a huge surprise is that it really allowed me to dive deeper and deeper and deeper, because now I know what I'm looking at. And it's like, okay, I've got these 5 things. There's no end to the depth. I don't care what your topic is.
Right.
There are always more layers. There are always deeper ways that you can go. And I think that has been fascinating and fun. And like I can totally nerd out, which is kind of come that way, but like it allows you to really, really dig deeper and deeper. And that also, by digging deeper and deeper and really understanding your area of expertise from all angles, it makes you so much better at your work as well.
Yeah.
So it's really, I am a huge fan, and I started off a huge curmudgeon. So there's nothing like the faith of the converted, I guess, but there you go.
Right. Yeah. So for anyone listening to this, who's like, I don't know, am I ready to do this or not? And I saw earlier Laura saying like, okay, I think my next step is to get clear about my ideal client. And that's great. Like that. Yeah. You want to have at least a good enough idea of your ideal client and the outcomes that they want, that you can get them. But if you are working with a set of people, getting them consistent outcomes, you have a process that's in there. Like you're ready to start externalizing and organizing this. And as Erica said earlier, like this is the kind of thing you'll probably go through a few drafts. You should get feedback on it. You should let it unfold. And I think one of the things that we crave, especially when you're in those earlier years of being a coach or consultant, is getting to that point where we can confidently say like, I really have something unique of value to offer here. And I can talk about it in the way where I don't feel like I'm just saying the same exact thing as everybody else. And sometimes we'll go get a certification or write a book or whatever that helps bolster that, confidence to the next level. But this is one of those assets that you can create that pretty immediately has like this value of showing like, I am somebody who has taken the time to think through a consistent, dependable process for getting a type of result for a specific kind of person. And so in preparation for having that book, or even if you never want to write a book, that's fine. Like, you have this thing to start using that gives you that boost of confidence, authority, differentiation. I mean, yes, look, like, you're not the only person, right, Ergo, who talks about how to choose the right publication, but you're the only person with the Silva method that puts it all together in this specific way with these specific perspectives and tools and approach to doing those things. And that has a huge amount of value, I think, to any coach or consultant expert who's looking to like elevate things to the next level.
And within your signature method, you also, like, this sounds a little corny, we're all unique and special snowflakes, but
Right.
we bloody are.
Yes.
And the experiences that you bring to the table as a coach or consultant, your peer who is doing the same work has completely different experiences and perceptions and approaches to things. They may look very similar on the surface, but they're different because you're different people.
Yeah.
So when you can really figure out your structure, then you can also unearth the things that it's like, oh, here's what I do that's so different. Here's some of the stuff that I'm bringing to the table that's, oh, well, that's very different. And it helps with, here's another one of those like surprise things that comes around. It also helps with imposter syndrome, because then you can say, like, look, imposter syndrome, Dory Clark is my primary competitor. A literal genius is my primary competitor. But now that I have really dived into all of this, it's like, okay, this is how I can see how different we are.
Right.
And like how different people are going to be better served by one of us or the other one. And that's delightful, because then it just, again, it goes to that confidence thing. And the more confident we are in what we're doing, and it's real confidence, not arrogance, then the more, that comes across. And then people can trust themselves, their lives, their businesses, their health, whatever it is, in your hands, because that's, we are working with individuals and they have got to trust us, because I guarantee you they have been screwed at some point along the line.
Right. Yeah. Good stuff. So let's let people know who have been listening to us today and might have a desire to explore any of these themes further with either of us. What do you have available for those who might want to reach out and get a little more FaceTime with you, or just like explore a little bit more what you have to offer in terms of developing their body of work and getting it out there in a meaningful way?
Yeah. So next month, both November and December, I am running a masterclass. It's the whole Silva method. So it'll take you step by step through that. It is a free program. It's an hour. You can sign up and register for that. It'll give you 2 different options for dates. You can find the link to that either on my LinkedIn profile, which please connect with me on LinkedIn, because I'd love to get to know you some more. And that would be a great place if you're interested in just exploring what this is, what this really means, how it all works. And the link is Catchline. It's, catchline.link/masterclass, or just head to my profile on LinkedIn. That works too.
Awesome. And I'm going to make sure that this gets into the comments too. So by all means, check out the comments, and if you're watching the recording, whatever, later, you'll see it in there as well. And then, for those of you interested in chatting with me some more, I've got a worksheet that can get you started on that initial version of your signature method. And if it further interests you, happy to spend 20 or so minutes going over that with you, giving my initial thoughts or feedback, giving you ideas of how you might start applying that in your business, or elevating that even further to get some of the benefits that we've talked about here today. So you can email me at jason@jasonvanorden.com, or check in the comments from this live stream and make sure that is down there as well. Thanks so much, Erica. This has been so much fun to have this conversation with you here today. And thank you for those who are able to join us live and give their input and comments. And we definitely look forward to our next opportunity to bump into any of you or to chat with you further about these things in the future. But we hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day and week. We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Bye
Bye,
all.
everyone.
Thanks again.